Yes, thank you so much, Shreya. Yes, the Pegasus storm has acquired new dimensions, and now Omer Kabir, a tech journalist based in Israel, has now got a statement from Amnesty International, and I'm going to go straight to Kabir. Kabir, thank you so much for speaking to CNN News 18. Now that the Amnesty International is saying that this is not the classified list of people who were snooped upon, so where does this lead the entire investigation to, and how do these numbers or classified numbers find their way to the list? I want to know from you, and what did Amnesty actually tell you?
So Amnesty actually has been, they are not saying anything new, that we're clarifying the thing they said from the start, and that is that it's not a list of targets of number targeted by Pegasus software, as was represented by some media outlet, but a list of numbers of interest to people, to countries that are clients of NSO, or some of them are clients of NSO. What is the provenance of the list? Where did it came from? This is a very difficult question to answer, because Amnesty and Forbidden Stories have not released this information. We have some indication that it may be taken from an HLR lookup service. HLR is a global network of sorts connecting all cellular operators in the world. It's what actually enables you to call a number in another cellular operator in your country or in another country. And a lookup service, an HLR lookup service, enables you to get very basic information about the number you are looking up, like whether it's online or offline, which cellular network operator is it connected to, and is it roaming, and in which country is it connected to right now. It has a lot of legitimate uses by law enforcement. So let's say you are an officer investigating a drug case. You have a legal take on a suspect phone line, and he gets a call from another number. You will usually look up that number in the service to see roughly where it's coming from. And also have some illegitimate uses.
You're specifically talking about HLR.
Yes, exactly.
So if I'm getting this right, so Amnesty has essentially said that this could be potential list of numbers NSO's clients could be interested in spying on. But isn't the actual list, and in the absence of any forensic evidence, then shouldn't this be seen as some kind of a fishing expedition, as the government of India is talking about?
I wouldn't call it exactly a fishing expedition. The list is problematic, as it was represented wrongly by some media outlets, but the original publication, Forbidden Story and 18 journalists, 18 media working with it, and Amnesty, never claimed that it was a list of NSO's Pegasus targets, that it was a list of interest of number of interests by NSO's clients. If it's a fishing expedition, that maybe it's a fishing expedition against NSO, because NSO has been targeted, has been linked to this list in every possible publication, in every possible reporting on this story, even though they are claiming there are no direct link. And I myself has been asking the last few days, why was NSO targeted? Why was NSO the one that is being linked to this list in every story, and not some other companies that are doing the same thing? NSO's competitors, some of them, a lot of them are Israeli. For example, Kandiru, a company I reported about just last week, also have clients that in countries that are also NSO clients, such as UAE and Saudi Arabia. So the thing that the linking of NSO to the list is very problematic, in my opinion.
Yes, so you're specifically saying that it is NSO that has to be held accountable now, because it is NSO which clearly has undermined privacy of private citizens. But look at the other aspect of it. What is NSO saying? NSO says that they sell this spyware only to vetted governments and to specific private players. And remember, this is not for the first time we are talking about Pegasus. In fact, Pegasus surfaced few years ago. Are you of the opinion that the governments across the world should be holding NSO accountable?
Yes, I do. I think government should be holding NSO accountable. I just want to clarify something. NSO does not sell its software to private entities. They don't sell to Pegasus to private entities. They only work with countries and government agencies. They will not sell to private entities. It's very important to be clear on that. There have been a lot of reporting about NSO in the last few years, a lot of it done by me with conjunction with Citizen Lab from the University of Toronto. And it has been showed repeatedly that Pegasus software was being misused to target journalists, human rights activists, dissidents, and other people for illegitimate uses. And it was also shown in this latest story, because aside from the list, they also did a forensics analysis of 67 phones, handed them to Amnesty physically, and they found traces of Pegasus on 37 of them. So this story also reaffirmed other reporting and research done about NSO in the last few years, and it should be held accountable, not because of the list, because of the other body of research that raises very disturbing questions about how Pegasus is being used.
And Kabir, when Amnesty has said very clearly that while acknowledging that this could be a list of people who NSO would be interested in spying on, not necessarily the actual list, then how do we know who was spied on? Would you say that it's a technological challenge to really come up with a list where borders are involved, and this certainly is about individuals and their privacy? What should the governments in respective countries be doing now?
So how do we know who's spied on? Well, we don't know it from the list. You can't say definitely that someone has been on the list, that it has been targeted by NSO or Pegasus. The only way right now that you can prove to some level of certainty that the phone was being targeted by Pegasus is if you examine the phone physically and find sort of forensic evidence by methodology being developed by Amnesty and Citizen Lab, sort of processes operating on the phone, and this sort of thing has been done in this case in 37 phones. So it is a technological, and a logistical challenge. You can't obviously check physically every one of the 50,000 phones on the list. You have to have the phone delivered to Amnesty Lab. The technician have to look through the phone info. It's very difficult to do. And not a lot of people are willing to do it, obviously. As to the privacy issue, it's not really a privacy issue because you have to be willing to give your phone to Amnesty to check it. So there's not a privacy issue in that regard. But it is a technical, it is a big task. It's not easy to do.
And how does the world in general rise up to the challenge of what clearly is a cyber, spying that is happening? And what should the governments do to reassure their citizens that their privacy is not being encroached upon?
Well, as to governments that are not the Israeli governments, first of all, they need to assure the citizens that they themselves are not using Pegasus. A lot of the countries criticizing NSO right now, some of them presumably are NSO's client themselves. Almost half all NSO's clients are in Western Europe. A lot of Western European countries came out against the companies in the last few days. Some of them have been hypocritical because they are probably using the software themselves. So if you want to assure your citizens that your privacy is not being abused, you can assure them that you are not using NSOs or one of its other competitors' program spyware. And if they're not willing to do it, that's problematic. The only way that the entire world can be assured that nothing bad is happening is if the Israeli regulator become more affirmative, more proactive with NSO and other companies, and strive for more transparency in the way these companies are operating and the way they are being regulated. Right now, there is very little transparency in the area. And the problem is that the Israeli government does not really have an interest in doing it because it has a lot of other conflicting interests with the companies that are NSO's clients. So with the countries that are NSO's clients. It has a political interest there, diplomatic, financial, security interest. So they are not really willing to stop this connection with the countries and not sell them NSO because they are profiting it they are themselves profiting from it in some way.
Okay, Kabir, last question to you. We are seeing an investigation being ordered by the Paris prosecutor because the French journalists and also the premier was spied on allegedly. In India, the names include journalists, 2 of the current union ministers, constitutional body holder, and also other politicians and political opponents of the current government. Is there a need? Do you think what is being done by the French is something that the countries all over the world should be doing, going ahead with the investigation to get to the bottom of the truth? What exactly is the truth? Who spied on private individuals? And if there is nothing, then we should know, because if anything, this appears to be some kind of a cyber attack on private citizens in the country.
Yes, they definitely should be doing that. They should be looking into what is happening in their countries, whether it's their country themselves that is using NSOs or other companies' spyware, or other countries using it against their citizens. I'm not sure how much they can really get to the truth, because a lot of the information is being held by NSO in Israel, and the only way to get to it is through cooperation with the Israeli regulator, the Israeli Defense Ministry. I'm not sure how much they'll be willing to cooperate with other countries, again, because they have a lot of interest in keeping this close to the chest and protecting these companies.
All right. Omer Kabir, appreciate your time. This was Omer Kabir, who got that statement from Amnesty International, which has raised further questions about the nature of the entire expedition or investigation that has been put out by 18 media consortium, all of them highlighting their private citizens or people of eminence being snooped upon in their respective countries. That's all from me.